first things we need to do before we're talking about traceability, fix the logistics. Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed my pleasure to be here with this Asia Food Safety and Quality Forum. Not just because I'm standing here to share what I'm going to talk about on global food traceability, which is a critical component for food safety and quality, but also to see a very positive and encouraging outcome of this forum. We have more than 240 registrations for this forum, which actually exceeds the capacity of 180 in this room. And all these efforts, I must say, they go to my marketing as well my industry engagement team. It's all of their efforts together with the support of the Food Council that could make the success of today's forum. And I hope that most of you would get something out from this forum, because indeed the participants in today's forum actually comes from a very diverse sort of industry representation, from food companies, from catering, food services, as well as hotels. So this is a forum that could help to bring all this knowledge and exchange to the industry. I would also, before I start, to, on behalf of GS1, to once again welcome and thank you for a lot of the speakers who come aboard, far aboard to join this event. And many of these speakers are very close partners of GS1, like the World Bank, the FIA, the GFSI, etc., etc. And I would also like particularly to thank my GS1 colleagues from Thailand who have invited the Office of the Consumer Protection to share a very interesting presentation with us. And of course, it's, luckily that presentation is not before lunch. When I look at the rise, I've never seen that. But it's, anyway, so my presentation, I will give you a very quick overview about GS1, and probably some of you from the consumer goods, goods might have heard of GS1, but I will still do that. And also to introduce the GS1 Global Traceability Standard, and to share, and finally to share some of the Hong Kong traceability initiatives. So who is GS1? GS1 is a global, not-for-profit standards organization dedicated to the design and implementation of open standards in order to improve supply chain visibility and efficiency. And the GS1 standard, or sometimes we call it GS1 system, which is a whole suite of standards, probably is one of the most widely used standards in the supply chain standards in use in the past 40 years across 25 industries. And obviously, one of the standards, if you even don't know the full suite of the standard, one of which is very popular is the barcode that appears in most of the products. Because GS1 is a user driven and user governed because the GS1 standard is user driven and user governed, hence it represents a global user community. Brussels, but actually it's like a federated organization, and I'm responsible for Hong Kong. So GS1 is represented in over 150 countries or economies around the world, and we have over 2 million corporate users. So take Unilever as an example. So Unilever has many companies around the world, but we only count the Unilever once. And the barcode, as I said, one of our core standards, actually has a, I don't know how to say this, I don't know how to count these figures. Probably it's 5 billion, right? If I'm correct. So can you imagine this little barcode, which GS1 has invented 40 years ago, is now being scanned every day, 5 billion times around the world. So how impressive it is. Now, about GS1 Hong Kong. GS1 Hong Kong was actually established by the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce 25 years ago, for a long time. And we have 4 roles to play here in Hong Kong. First, we promote and facilitate global standards adoption across industry. And obviously, food is one of our core sectors. And the reason of driving the standards adoption or promoting the standards adoption is to help solve some of the business challenges, especially to promote interoperability, which is an important component of traceability. We also engage industry needs. We have different committees, and then we engage the industry needs, and by providing standard-based solutions and services to help these companies. Knowledge transfer obviously is an important role of GS1 Hong Kong because we're here to provide capacity building as well as to share best practices and to provide this kind of an industry network like today. Being a local global organization, apart from facilitating or advocating industry collaboration, we also facilitate many of the local global trade projects. Give you an example, we have a wine traceability project all the way from tracking the wine from Italy to Hong Kong. We have an apparel RFID project. We track the garment with the RFID tag from China factory all the way to US. We have a food project, melon. The Japanese melon is very, very famous. It costs 400 Hong Kong dollars per melon. Okay? We have that melon tracking from the Japanese farm all the way to Hong Kong. So by this kind of initiative, we also help to connect our members to the global communities to do the trade facilitation, but at the same time advocating the standards adoption. In Hong Kong, GS1 Hong Kong is, Hong Kong is a small economy. So obviously compared to the big economies, we'll have a small size of membership. We have a total of about 6,500 members coming from a very diverse industries, from the biggest as well as the smallest. In fact, I must say that 80% plus of our members come from the SMEs, small SMEs. And you can see the breakdown there, that actually food and beverages sector is an important sector of our membership. 1/3 of our members are coming from food and beverages, followed by the FMCG, which is the fast-moving consumer goods. And then of course, the healthcare as well as the apparel. So now comes to what is the global traceability standard? The GS1 Global Traceability Standards aims to provide the quality manager in the food supply chain with an effective traceability processes. Basically, it focuses on the linking traceability into the operation processes, and with the objective of helping the business to meet different business requirements as well as different regulatory compliance. And I will share that in a moment. Why do we need to do that? I think a lot of people are talking about, consumers, etc. I mean, you and I are consumers. What are we looking at today? Today, before we buy a product, we will all look at the label, etc. Right? We are not only concerned about the end product. We are concerned about the ingredients, the materials, and we're concerned where it's coming from. What is it made up of? If the product set is an organic product, what's the proof of that organic product? If the product comes with a carbon footprint, how do we know about all this? As a consumer, we're concerned about this. And all these components, in fact, could be made accessible to the consumers by the barcode and the mobile phone. Because if we put all this information or associate the barcode number, it's not just the barcode, it's the ID, it's the product ID, to associate with different types of information, as a consumer, by scanning the barcode, we'll be able to access this kind of information. So this is the opportunity to make open, not just scanning the barcode for retail checkout efficiency, but also to help to connect the brands about the more product information, or what we call the extended product information, to the consumers. And this is also a reason why we need to have a global traceability standard. Why? Because today's food supply chain is global. We could have materials, ingredients coming from all over the places. So it would be much better if we could have a global traceability standard that could help in case of any kind of a recall, we'll be able to detect, have this kind of traceability to quickly detect and do the recall. From a business point of view, it's the same. There are many different sort of food safety initiatives or food safety compliance programs. It would be much better off if we have the global traceability standard that could support all the different types of food quality or safety programs. And it's for this reason that GS1 Global has been in partnership or collaboration with many of the global regulators or global trade bodies or food organizations. We work closely with the EU, European Commission, the World Customs Organization, the World Health Organization, the ISO, the FDA, the GFSI, etc., etc. Why? Because we see a complementary role. Most of these organizations or regulators, they have, one way or the other, many types of food safety or quality programs. For example, the HKSAR, the Global Gap, the ISO, etc., etc. They all have a very specified sort of program and compliance that food operators or food manufacturers need to fulfill. But there's one thing in common. You know what is it? Did you see the word TR? Which means traceability requirement. That is across all different types of food quality and safety regulations or programs, they all have a specific traceability requirement. And this is how the GS1 traceability standard fit in. And this is what we are focusing, trying to have a uniform methodology of traceability to fit into different types of food quality initiative or regulatory compliance. So how does the GS1 Global Traceability Standard work? There are 4 key components to do that. First, we need to have unique identification throughout the supply chain to be able to identify and code. We need to integrate traceability into the operation processes. Third, the information system, which plays a key role in today's sort of, food supply chain. And last but not least, how to have the procedures and documentation. So let me go through it one by one. Identification. Don't just look at the barcode as that. In fact, the number underneath the barcode is a globally unique product identifier, precisely representing this particular product. Now, of course, the whole identification does not stop on this item level. It can be escalated to case level, item level, and this unique identification could also be used to identify, because it's a generic, non-significant identification system that can be used to identify whether it's an ingredient, a material, a shipment, a location, etc. And these identifications are very crucial to be referenced to specific processes in the supply chain. For example, during in production or in the distribution until into the retailing. So we are able to know what this particular product is, assuming this is an item. So it goes through the end of production, now it's in distribution, and now it's in the retailing. And of course, every checkpoint, whether it's a factory, whether it's a retail store, could also be uniquely identified by a technical term with what we call the global location number. Operation refers to how to integrate the traceability processes into operations, including we need to have a proper identification, when and where to capture proper processes in the operation, as well as how to associate the right information for that particular processes. Of course, after capturing all this information, we need to share, and we need to have effective information systems to be able to track and trace. I would say that most organizations, especially the big one, must have their information systems. And they should be able to know or track and trace their own product internally. But as I said, today's food supply chain is global. It works beyond your organization. It needs to be connected to your suppliers, to your customers, or even to the border agency, etc. So this global supply chain, the need of the global traceability standard is to provide the standard to enable the sharing of information not just internally, but externally across the supply chain. And of course, procedures, documentations are very important for a food company to have this kind of operating manual procedures so that your staff would be able to follow. In order to support that, GS1, with the contribution of hundreds of industry practitioners, because as I said earlier on, we are a user-driven organization. So we set up many different sort of work groups. We also have our global food committee that invite experts from across the world to contribute on the standards development. So some of the deliverables is we come up with very detailed traceability implementation guidelines. And these guidelines are sector specific. Like for example, we have traceability implementation guidelines for beef, for fresh produce, fish, etc., etc. So by providing these detailed implementation guidelines, we could help the companies to integrate these guidelines into your standard operating procedures. Now let me share briefly of some of the Hong Kong traceability initiatives. Obviously, like today's forum is one of the opportunity for us to work with industry organizations like the Food Council to share industry best practices. I think this is one of the, in fact, today is a much bigger seminar, but we have been working with Food Council for the past year and organized numerous sort of workshops and seminars surrounding food safety and product quality and safety. And every time we do have a very, very good turnout rate. I understand at least because it's a kind of like a workshop type, very in-depth sharing of cases and best practices. I think on average, every time we have 50 to 60. And this is not easy, for Hong Kong to because everybody is very busy. So obviously, those best practices workshops, we're still going on. It hasn't stopped yet because it's an 18-month project, I understand. So we still have a few more rounds of this industry best practices workshop on the food supply chain. And for those who are interested, we could provide you with more information for upcoming workshops. In using of the technology on food traceability, we do have different sort of projects. Say, for example, this First Nest company, by using our QR code, the QR code, we're able to help the companies to capture the product information at the serialized level. So by doing this, the company is able to track and trace the product internally to fit into their food quality management program. But at the same time, because of this capability of the traceability at serialized level, and together with the product authentication label, the security label, the company also made use of this technology to combat counterfeiting. And that helps to protect the brand, because that could help. I won't go into details of it because of the time. But basically, this is another solution called product authentication, which is sponsored by the Hong Kong government a few years ago. And we see this great synergy to be integrated to the food supply chain as well. And with mobile, as I said in the beginning, I think the combination of today's mobile devices as well as the barcode that appears in most of the products. It gives us great opportunity to connect the brands to the product information behind the barcode. This is what we call the extended information. Okay? We'll be able to know by scanning the barcode. Of course, the brand will have to work with us to provide that kind of information. But the barcode is the interface between the brand and the consumer. So we'll be able to know, as long as the information is there, we'll be able to know the origin or even the usage of the product. And in this case, in this particular project, it's talking about wine pairing. So it's a lot of the information that the label itself would not be able to capture, but by scanning the barcode, we would be able to know what's behind. Of course, there are more advanced technology. For example, by using RFID sensor tag, we'll be able to continuously monitor the quality, the temperature and the humidity of the product from point of origin to point of destination. In past years, we have also been helping the GS1 Hong Kong members on some of the traceability audit scheme, with the objective to improve, to look at the improvement points for food quality. Another thing that which I haven't put here, but I would also like to say, is that, and perhaps this is also something for consideration by World Bank, by GSFI, by FIA, is that we also work with our Hong Kong government Center of Food Safety. By doing what? Just because the Center of Food Safety has a food alert system. What we have asked them to do is by voluntary. It's not, Hong Kong, we don't like mandate. We don't like more regulations. We don't like it. But just by simply adding the barcode number, the GTIN, into the Hong Kong Center of Food Safety's alert system. So that, because we also have our GTIN, the barcode number, the database, which is linked to the retailer's system. So if there's a food alert system, the retailers, by precisely knowing what the particular product is, because of the barcode, the GTIN, they were able to flag the alert at the retail point of sale. So even though the consumer grabbed the product on the shelf, they won't be able to take the product out of the store. So this is the way of what we call the product alert system. So according to the Aberdeen report, we find that about 60% of the best performing food companies in the world are also using the GS1 standard. So building on our knowledge base and experiences globally as well as locally, we are putting up, we will be launching in the coming future the Food Supply Chain Excellence Program. Comprises the implementation guidelines, the traceability assessment scheme, as well as the various types of implementation support. And last but not the least, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to visit our Internet of Things Center, the IoT Center, which is located in the Science Park. This center is funded by the Hong Kong government. It is a seeing and believing. We have more than 40 sort of IoT related, this is all the innovation technology applications, spanning across from manufacturing, logistics, retail, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So for those of, I believe many of the Food Council members have visited there. For those some of the visitors, if you have interested, please let us know. And with all these initiatives and the industry collaboration, we hope they will be able to work together for a safer and a much more quality food supply chain. Thank you.